Finance Committee for January. Do the roll call, please.
McTaggart.
Present.
All.
Here.
Bills.
Present.
Curtis.
Yeah. We have a motion to approve the agenda you have in front of you. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, and we'll go to public comments. None. We'll go to Randy.
Relatively quiet month with the holidays and everything. We did have some conversations with the insurance company's lawyer regarding some employment practices issues and things like that. They wanted to give their input and had a good conversation. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet. No news is good news.
Yep. Thanks. Susie? Yep, thank you.
It's been quiet on our end as well. All plans and policies are renewed for December and January, so now we're just trucking forward for the new year. But other than that, it's been quiet. Things have been running well.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
Yep. Department head reports. Mindy?
Really don't have anything. I really don't have anything either.
All right. Eric?
Got a signed copy of the EOC, or Emergency Operations Center Technology Grant back, as expected.
Very good. Got anything, Bob? Nope. Nobody else? All right, we're steaming along here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Anita.
Well, on the full audit, the auditors will be here the week of the 16th through the 19th. They'll start work remotely on the 15th. That is a holiday, so they won't be here in the building, but they're going to start work at their offices then. So I'll have to have everything to them before then. Like, I send it all now to a portal anyway and upload all the work papers onto a portal, so I'll do that sometime right before Monday. But by Monday morning at 8 o'clock, they want to be ready to go. We're finished with the preliminary testing that was done mid-December. That went really well. The internal controls testing, the circuit clerk testing, they sent only 2 people instead of 3 this year, so they thought they wouldn't get as far, but they really did get everything done. So that went well, and I think that's it. There's one outstanding item I just forwarded to Eric this morning. Eric had talked to me about 911 wanting an additional audit for the 911 ETSB fund in addition to the regular audit. So Eric, I forwarded you that quote this morning. Did you see that?
Yeah, I just got that.
Okay, so Hope gave a quote of $3,000, but they would want to complete the work while they're here doing all the other county work for the full audit. So it would be that same period. And then gave us a list of things that they would need to look at. So it's kind of extensive. So.
And why do we need this?
Well, we're an entirely new board. I thought we ought to have a clean slate. That's where we're starting out from.
But I guess why, I mean, they're already part of the county audit, as I understand.
Well, that was my first suggestion was that we look into what it costs. I think this is prohibitive, but I'd like to look in, maybe we could draw out enough from the full audit to satisfy our interest.
The concern I told Eric, which is a concern, a valid concern, would be the materiality threshold. Because you're looking at a $500,000 entity, your materiality threshold to get written up for something, have a finding, would be great. The slightest thing could get written up and it will be a finding, and that will reflect on the county as a whole. That is the downside to it. Obviously, if you want to do it, there's additional work required, in the finance office and in the treasurer's office to complete this list of things they want us to do.
I think we probably should take it up with a separate meeting of the 911 board, discuss it more. Or is that to make a decision of $3,000 today?
Well, I think there's more than just $3,000 the way it sounds too, because there's additional work involved and exposure from a, like, I think what Anita's point is right now she's making audit adjustments for $1,000 and stuff, which on the size of the government's fairly minuscule. I mean, to be making those kind of audit adjustments, and when you get down to a that small of an entity, they're going to be looking for pennies. And does the benefit outweigh the amount of time that's going to be consumed readjusting the books for 25 cents? And I mean, I think we're all in favor of having accurate records and stuff. But I don't know.
I don't want to do that, but I'd like to figure out a little bit if it doesn't mean more than that.
Well, I guess that would be something to talk with probably the auditors or something about, because I can't imagine it not being that case, given how small of a materiality threshold they have with the county. It would be just logical thinking. But, and I guess I'm not 100% sure why our current, and that's something I think probably the board needs, the 911 PTSD or whatever, the Joint Dispatch Board, whatever needs to talk about is what is not being done in the current audit that we need this. I guess
we need to discuss it further.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to do the work while they're here the week of the, it'd probably be the second week, the week of the 22nd. When is your board meeting? So we would know. Because we need, before they do anything, we have to have a signed engagement letter.
I understand that.
So,
I don't know when we meet, it was the third
Tuesday, 16th?
We can discuss it then, I guess.
Okay.
What?
Next one's 16.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
No, I understand what's going on there. Take a new job, you got new things, you want to make sure everything's clean to drive with, but at the same time, there's a whole bunch of costs to go with it, and it could be a lot more cost than what you're looking at initially, too. So, yeah, they need to look at it real close.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's opposed to making sure everything's right. At what?
They'll take a look at it, see if they find a good reason.
Yeah. Okay.
Workers' comp audit. That's this afternoon. He's coming at, he thinks around 1 o'clock. And what they're going to do is audit our final payroll. I had to put together all the payroll for the year by classification, by workers' comp classification code, and they match that up with the policy. So what we paid during the year are estimates in the policy, and so here's where they true it up to what we actually paid. I anticipate more than likely an additional billing. We were getting big credits. The credit amount kept going down, and last year we got an additional charge of about $6,000 that came in after the audit. In talking to Randy, he didn't realize they weren't adjusting the payroll amounts every year. They just kept it same as the year before. So things like the public health, the salary amounts were from the first year they were here in 2014, which was only 5 months of salaries. So now that they're here a full year, you know, the salaries are greater. Salary increases, etc., all that stuff is playing in. So it's higher. We didn't know that until after the policies were issued in December of 16 for FY17. So I anticipate an additional charge. We'll see how it plays out, but our salaries didn't go down, so.
Remember how it come out in 016 when we had our audit? How much of a, did we have another 5% we had to throw at them or something last year?
The audit actually was about $6,000, so.
So it was less than 5%.
Yeah.
Because our total premium there probably was. You remember off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no. 100 and,
150?
No, 110, around 110. So,
Whatever it is, that's, only thing is, they sometimes play games with classifications and everything, and I'm sure somebody will keep a good eye on them.
yeah, I did catch a couple things last year, so
Yeah.
helped us out a little bit.
Okay?
Yep.
The results of the arbitration came in.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
So, oh, John's gonna talk? Okay, John can share the news.
You are.
Oh, great. So in terms of hours, wages, retroactive, steps, comp time, increased comp time, overtime rules, and the payout of the personal day, those all went to the union. All to the union. On the labor side, on the management side, we had a ruling that the management rights piece and scheduling and the health insurance contributions went to the employer side. So I've calculated this, tentative back pay and the date. The big issue is the date of the contract, and the date of enforcement is January 22nd, 2015. So it's 3 years of retroactive pay. I have a tentative calculation now. We have this week's payroll, so I'll have to recalculate for that. But the total is right now of back pay is $247,245. The estimated increase to the FY18 budget that we have an issue that we need to address is somewhere over $60,000, between $60,000 and $70,000 in increased salary in FY18 that is unbudgeted at this point and unfunded. Payouts, the average increase to the current employees is 25%, and the payout of the $247,000, $197,000 of it will go to current employees. They will get the top 6 will get between $27,000 and $35,000 in back pay.
now is that including the RMF and all
No.
the other issues that go with it, so there's...
No, that's just straight wages, and it's not complete at this point.
Workers' comp and all that stuff?
No.
Because
Doesn't include any of that.
that sounds like another 50 grand hiding there.
Now, John and I had a conversation yesterday with Dave Hibben in terms of what our options are at this point, and I think that will be a board decision at some point. He wasn't available to come talk to the board today, but I think he said he'd be available on Tuesday, correct?
It's likely that we're gonna go ahead and have them here on Tuesday.
Go into executive session to discuss what the options would be at this point. The other issue is I have a call into Hope Wheeler because what we're talking about is a huge liability here. So how do we accrue that? It goes back 3 years. Does she want me to restate 3 years of financials? I think I know what the answer is, but I was hoping, yeah. I mean, in terms of because they use as a materiality, it's a fund level. So in terms of, the Joint Dispatch Fund, per year, it's, the FY15 accrual is $56,000 on $340,000 in expense. FY16 is $82,000, FY17 is $97,000. So the FY17 is easy because we haven't closed FY17. FY16 and FY15 means reopening the books, which have already been audited, and doing prior period adjustments. Not so easy. So, And like I said, that is preliminary, and they're low at this point, because we don't have this week's pay, so it'll be over.
Be interesting to see what Hibbins says. How we get guided.
Right.
What'd you say?
But more than likely, that's gonna be a long, ugly.
Right.
Depending on what he says, I'm sure it's not gonna be something that's resolved in
No, it won't.
this year, next year, maybe the year after.
Just wait.
He's gathering information right now on what our options are, so that we can make a better informed decision on what to do. And that would be the essence of him coming on Tuesday, would be to discuss that for the whole board, so that everybody would have an understanding of, and I'd be able to ask questions as well.
The
Well, we at
basis,
least are gonna have, no matter, well, maybe not no matter what, but it sounds like more than likely, going forward, there's at least another 60,000.
yes,
That part's not, would be hard to
right.
overturn, but
But what we're gonna need to do is, I mean, relatively quickly, I have auditors coming in 2 weeks, so I'm gonna have to know whether the board wants to move forward with some other action or accept the results as is. I'll have to determine, make some sort of a judgment on the likelihood of whether or not the retroactive back pay would be paid out. Would that be a likely or probable liability that I have to accrue for or not? So that's an issue that's got to be resolved really within the next week, so that I know how to close the books.
Tuesday, I hope that we'll have an answer for you on that.
Right, right. It is, I found it interesting, I don't know what John thought about the ruling, but really on the wages and all of that, they said, our point was we were comparable to counties of around 30,000 people, so that's how I typically do it, and they threw that argument out and said, no, we're more comparable to Champaign, Livingston, and Kankakee County,
On what basis?
because they're close to us.
That's what they always do. Maybe they're before. Basically, you get the Chicago approach, stuff, and Iroquois County. The Chicago approach.
I think,
Size doesn't matter.
there's I think we got two issues at hand here. One's how do we deal with what the finding is, but undoubtedly, my guess is, and I hope I'm wrong, we're gonna have a much larger operating cost going forward of some nature, no matter what happens. And I guess my feeling is okay, this needs to be resolved with the lawyer, Mr. Hibben, coming and figure out what kind of action we can take, which sounds like hopefully Tuesday we'll have some better information on that. But my personal feeling is that when I talked with Anita and John prior to the meeting, is that we need to be doing something to figuring out how we're going to operate going forward, because we got this problem. No matter what happens, or even if we can reduce some of the impact, we're going to have an ongoing and growing budget problem from today for the rest of eternity, basically. And I guess I feel like we need to have some kind of a committee or something, some kind of organization within the board itself to investigate how are we going to bridge these gaps and find a way, if there are ways we can reduce costs by working with the Joint Dispatch Team or whatever it may be, or other means to figure out how we can keep the cost to the taxpayers down, because there's a lot of, you think 62,000, and like Russell pointed out, it's probably going to be much more than that. At 62,000, there's an extra $2 per person in the county, and I'm sure we'll be up to $5-10 per person, which doesn't sound a lot, but when we know half those people aren't paying the taxes, the people that are paying the taxes, the number is going to grow significantly. And I think we need to be doing something proactively to be figuring out how can we get our cost structure, keep it in line, and even benchmark ourselves versus other counties.
I got some ideas myself, but we've been looking at this, knowing the potentials down the road.
Sure.
I don't think I wanna go anywhere with any comment on it though until after Tuesday.
Wise.
I was gonna propose a motion, I guess, that we authorize the county board chairman to appoint an ad hoc committee to investigate ways and opportunities to reduce the cost of joint dispatch. And the ad hoc committee will submit reports or their reports and the recommendations back to the county board. So everybody on the board is aware, but I think we need to be proactive in figuring out how to, there's, to me, kind of two issues. How do we mitigate what has already been ruled and try and make it not quite as painful, but no matter what, it's going to be painful to some degree, and we need to be starting now or yesterday to figure out how we can control that going forward. So, I guess that's my motion if someone wants to.
Sound like a good idea, John?
I feel for that, nothing else we can do.
Well, I think and I think
We can't
if any board member, like Russell said, maybe here after Tuesday, people can voice more of their ideas and stuff, and I'm sure
We gotta take an active approach.
we got to take an active approach, and anybody on the board that has any ideas about how the heck do we manage this going forward, because we got a budget problem.
Yep.
And it's not going to go away. So,
Charlie, did you move on that?
What?
Did you move on that? To create a ad hoc committee?
He didn't make the motion.
Oh,
can I make a motion, or am I not allowed to, because I'm
You
No,
can,
sitting
but
in
I'm
next
sure
to
you'll get one.
You can reread it if you want. That was my motion. You want me to, or?
I'll second.
Your second?
Okay. So the motion was, seconded by Charlie, that I made was authorize the county board chairman to appoint an ad hoc committee to investigate ways or opportunities to reduce costs of joint dispatch. The ad hoc committee will submit reports and recommendations to the county board. Charlie,
Yeah, I second it.
any discussion? I guess we'll call the roll.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Bills?
yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Anything else on that, Anita?
That's about it for me.
Well, Tuesday should be interesting. Okay.
Another little piece.
Uh-huh.
We don't want to hear from her anymore.
The more you
Come
understand
in
it,
the
the
other,
more it makes
come
you
in,
sick.
go in and out the other door.
Yep,
Okay,
We know where your office is at.
yeah.
next on the agenda was review of financial policies. Don't have any updates. That's still lingering until after the audit, I believe.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we're all supposed to be doing our homework on that.
Is that connected with the audit?
No, that was, I think we were all, Anita sent out some initial documents, and we were all supposed to be reviewing and coming up with our comments.
I got that? I don't see it.
And
You
after
want
our,
me to resend it? I can resend it.
I don't know if we got, I'll look first. I won't.
anyways, we're
About
supposed to
100
be
pages
reviewing
long.
the financial policies, and after the audit's done and her workload is reduced, hopefully, from its current state, we'll discuss that. So that, I think, is the reminder on the agenda.
Correct.
That we're supposed to be doing something. Okay, and we don't do the historic cash trend this month.
Nope.
So we're on to the claims. Anybody review or have any questions?
I don't have it. Wait, here it is, I'm sorry.
We got some additional ones this month because of no action in some other committees.
Yes,
What's this?
you do have, zoning.
We have claims from other departments since the other departments did not meet this month.
Yeah. Now, those animal control, that was approved in tax, so I'm not sure why that's in there. I'm just looking at
Yeah, we approved.
Charlie's list here. Yeah. They weren't on the list for tax, they were brought to the committee, but they did get approved in there, so.
Approve them separate.
Mhm.
Motion to approve these claims.
Motion to approve the claims. We have a second. Mr. Curtis. Any questions or comments? If not, we'll call the roll.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Alt?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Curtis?
Okay. Do we have any old business? Hearing none. Any new business?
Yeah, just to keep everybody informed, I just wanted everybody to know, I have additional item that I'm working on, and that relates to, the IRS is sending out the first penalties related to the Affordable Care Act. 2 years ago, we started issuing 1095s. That's another, it's similar to a W-2, but it's, you get, every employee gets that every year at year end, about this time, that says they're covered by insurance. Every full-time employee, every eligible employee, okay? The IRS just got around to finishing up, sending out the fines for 2015, and we received one. And what, I was confused when I first started reading it because it said we had, one of our employees did not have what's considered affordable care. It was over the 9.5% of their wages, their contribution, which I checked diligently and is not the case. I knew that wasn't the case. So I looked at the employee. Well, first I'll tell you, you get fined by every employee, regardless of how many employees. So they said you have this one employee, but we fine you for every employee you have.
It's a money-making thing. That's part
Yes.
of the Affordable Health Care Act.
Yes.
That people have no idea that
The fine we've been assessed
post was big.
is $184,253. It's for one employee. When I went and looked at this employee, and I had Amanda pull his personnel file, because I'm like, was that the year he quit? No, he quit a year before. This employee left us a message that said, I quit, and walked out. On 4/25/2014. Remember, this is a fine for 2015. Well, this person was a member of a union that had back pay in 2015. So that related to 4 months that they worked in 2014. They got an extra 20 cents an hour offset by the cost.
That was paid out in 15.
It was paid out in 15. We did not report him as an employee because he did not work for us in 15. He was not eligible for insurance in 15. But he submitted his tax return saying he was an employee of Iroquois County in 2015, and we got fined for that.
So this is one of these things that you have to wrestle with the IRS now.
So now I got to fight with the IRS.
But it should be fairly reckoned.
Oh, yeah.
Not a,
Send your supporting documentation. I'm going to send this big note that says I quit.
The interesting thing is that we're going to be very small players dealing with this issue. It sounds like a problem for us, but there's going to be a lot bigger
Right.
things, and I'm thinking there's going to be some resolve under the federal administration now, but who knows?
I mean, you think about little Iroquois County and how clear-cut this is. I can't imagine
running a big company.
running a big company and what they're trying to deal with now.
Just little things like a failure to, what's the little miscellaneous income thing that you give out?
1099.
If you don't give out a 1099 to somebody right there, that's on 2 years come back, and again, they take it and multiply it.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be a big issue. How long do we have to resolve solve it, or?
By January 19th, I have to respond. So I want some additional documentation. I have to dig out from the 2015 1095 submission and send them copies of what we submitted, along with what I have here. I'll have to document a letter and send it all in to them, but it will get done.
It'd be interesting to see what the state association, because you know what, every county's gonna have the same issue there.
Mhm. And it's interesting to me that it's based on how this former employee filed their tax return, not on how we report it. We report it properly.
Right. But if somebody files a 1040, they can write down anything.
That's exactly right.
They can write down anything they want.
I mean, I could take you down with this. I was an employee of Russell Bill's.
Yeah, right. I think I'll put
Okay.
that pretty heavy.
I was
We'll
independent, remember?
hear back about that next month, I
Yep.
assume. I think, unless there's anything else.
Nope, that's it.
Motion adjourned.
You have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?